So the numbers are just 8, means 6 students are there. I'll just wait for 2 more minutes to start the class. Prior to that, I think we discussed about the structure of neuron in the last class regarding the control coordination chapter, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we have to continue further with the types of neurons, I believe. Okay. Just 2 more minutes. Let's see. Still, the strength is only 6. I'll just wait for 2 more minutes. Okay. Fine. I think we'll start the class. It's already late. Fine. So last class, we understood about the structure of neuron. There in the neuron, we understood it is going to have parts such as the cell body or the cyton, axon, and dendrites. Anybody has any doubt in that structure? That's going to be a sure question in the examination for 3 marks. Anybody has any doubt in that? The functioning of the neuron? Hello?
No, sir.
Okay. So can we proceed ahead? So let us try to understand today about the types of neurons. Types of neuron. So human body is going to have 3 different types of neurons for performing some important functions in the body. So based on its function itself, we have classified the types of neurons into 3 types. So the very first one is considered to be as sensory neuron. We call that as sensory neuron. So what is the sensory neuron? See, in the human body, every part of the body will be connected with neurons. So there will be various types of sensations given to the body. It can be in the form of touch impulse, or it can be in the form of sound impulse. It can be in the form of vision impulse, or it can be in the form of smell impulse or the taste impulse. ಯಾವುದೇ ತರವಾದಂತಹ impulse ಬಾಡಿಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು, very first the impulse will be taken up by the sensory neuron. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? Let's assume that somebody is going to come and touch you from the back. So the moment somebody touches you from the back, you will turn around to see who is it. That's the response. So how will you come to know that somebody has touched you? That's because your body, that is basically skin, has something called as receptor cells. The receptors will immediately take up that impulse and passes that impulse into the sensory neuron. Sensory neuron. The sensory neuron is going to carry that particular message to the part of the central nervous system, that is either to the brain or the spinal cord. So always sensory neuron is to carry, means the function of this is to carry the impulse from the body to the part of brain or the spinal cord in order to interpret that message. Is that clear to everybody? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Yeah. Please make a note of this one.
Yes,
sensory neuron. These neurons occur. These neurons occur in the sense organs of the human body, occur in the sense organs of the human body, and the receive impulse from the receptors, from the receptors and conducts that impulse towards central nervous system, towards the central nervous system. In bracket you can write down as brain or spinal cord. Okay. Next, second one, we have something called as motor neuron. Idiyen madutte motor neuron andre ಏನು? See, once the impulse is going to be given to your brain or the spinal cord ಅಥವಾ brain ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ? It is going to interpret that message. ಈಗ let's take an example. ಈಗ unknowingly you have touched a hot object. ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಹಾಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ, ಆದ್ರೆ ಟಚ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡಿದೀರಾ. The moment you touch that hot object, you will the next immediate second you are going to take out your hand for that. ಅದು ಯಾವ ತರ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? How is that possible? Because your body, means human body, will be having something called as motor neurons. Then madutte motor neurons are the one which is going to carry the impulse from the central nervous system to the effectors. Effectors are basically considered to be as your muscles. So receptors are all your sense organs. So sense organs can be skin, eyes, ears, nose, tongue. Idu receptors. Receptors andre avattu sense organs. Then effectors anta ನಾವು ಕರಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ all the effectors are considered to be as your muscles. So the receptors cannot be your sense organs again. ನೀವು ಇವಾಗ ಹಾಟ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ನ ಟಚ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಹಾಟ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ನ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಟಚ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ if you want to take out your hand for that, there should be a movement of the muscle contraction relaxation ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಅದು ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ those type of muscles will be called as effectors, and those effectors or muscles will be connected with motor neurons. So motor neurons ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ? Motor neurons are coming from the part of your central nervous system, that is basically the brain and the spinal cord. Allinda generate agi message ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? It will be passed on to the motor, means it will be passed on through the motor neurons to the effectors. Okay, is that clear everybody? I can draw.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please make a note of this one. Motor neurons. The motor neurons transmit impulse. Motor neurons transmit impulse. The neuron transmit impulse from central nervous system. From central nervous system towards the effector. Towards the effectors. Bracket ಅಲ್ಲಿ effectors ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ muscles ಅಂತ ಬರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. The effectors, muscles. Okay. Next, third type of neurons what we have is called as relaying neurons ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಇದೇನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ? Relaying neurons are basically the neurons occur in the central nervous system. Central nervous system ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬ್ರೈನ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಪೈನಲ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ನರ್ವ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ನ್ಯೂರಾನ್ಸ್ ಅದೇನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ? It is a connecting link between sensory neuron and motor neuron. ಅದನ್ನ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ? Relaying neurons. So relaying neurons are present in the central nervous system, and they are going to act as a bridge between connection of sensory neurons and the motor neurons. Kindly make a note of this one. Relaying neurons. These occur in the central nervous system. These occur in the central nervous system and acts as a link between sensory neuron and motor neuron. Acts as an link between sensory neuron and motor neuron for distant transmission of nerve impulse. For distant transmission of nerve impulse. Just a minute. Okay. So next, we have understood the types of neurons. Now let's try to understand the classification of the nervous system in the human body. So let's go ahead. So human nervous system. So human nervous system ಯಾವ ತರ classification ಆಗಿದೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. So very first, the human nervous system is classified as, first thing called as central nervous system. So which is CNS, central nervous system. Then after that, the second classification what we have is called as peripheral nervous system, which is also called as short form PNS. And then lastly, the third one is considered to be as autonomous nervous system, is also called as ANS. Kindly make a note of this one. Anesthesia board.
Yes, sir.
Okay, make a note of this one. ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಹೇಳಿ.
Yes, sir.
ಆಯ್ತಾ? ನೋಡಿ. So ನೋಡಿ, I have classified here as human nervous system as 3 parts: central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, ಮತ್ತು autonomous nervous system. ಏನಿದು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. See, central nervous system is further classified to something called as brain, as well as spinal cord. brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system is further classified as cranial nerves as well as spinal nerves. ಈ ತರ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫೈ ಆಗಿದೆ. Similarly, autonomous nervous system is further classified as parasympathetic nerves as well as sympathetic nerves. Then I'll explain what exactly are these and other. Please make a note of this one.
Sir.
Aita? Okay.
Sir.
Yeah. Now you can So here we have very first something called as central nervous system, which is classified only. Okay. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have the first part which is called as brain and the spinal cord. The brain and spinal cord always tries to get the information from all the sense organs and integrates it. Integrates it interpretation. Interpretation ಮಾಡೋದು ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ರೈನ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಪೈನಲ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್. ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಎವ್ರಿ ಟೈಮ್ ಏನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ the functioning of all the organs and organ systems ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ we require the help of our brain and the spinal cord. ಅದಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಇವಾಗ ಯಾರೋ ಏನೋ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ, ನಾವು ಯು ಪೀಪಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ರೆಸ್ಪಾಂಡ್ ಟು ಇಟ್. ಆ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಬಾಡಿಯಿಂದ ಯು ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ ಅ ಬ್ರೈನ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು, ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಏನ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ ವಿ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ ದ ಬ್ರೈನ್. ಸ್ಪೈನಲ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಟೇಕ್ ಅಪ್ ದ ಅದರ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಿಬಿಲಿಟೀಸ್. ಲೈಕ್ as we discussed, if somebody is going to touch you, you are going to turn around to see who is it. Athra activities na ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ spinal cord. So basically both brain and spinal cord are going to carry the means, it is going to take up the nerve impulses, integrate it and interpret it. ಅದು interpret ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಬಂದು peripheral nervous system, which we also call it as PNS, classified as cranial nerves ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಪೈನಲ್ ನರ್ವ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. ಏನಿದು cranial nerves and spinal nerves? Both cranial nerves and spinal nerves are ultimately connected to the central nervous system. ಎರಡು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, both cranial nerves and spinal nerves, which are connected to the central nervous system, carries the information given by the central nervous system to the effectors. ಇವಾಗ ತಾನೇ ಓದಿದ್ವಿ ಮೋಟರ್ ನರ್ವ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಓದಿದ್ವಿ, ಹೌದಾ? ಆ ಮೋಟರ್ ನರ್ವ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾದೂ ಇದೆ, cranial nerves ಮತ್ತು spinal nerves. ಇದೇನಿದು, what is the difference between these two then? Cranial nerves are the nerves which arises from the brain. Cranial nerves arises from the brain. ಮತ್ತು ಎಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, means totally there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? From the brain it is connected to the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, face, as well as the neck region. ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ nerves connect ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ those nerves are arising from the cranial nerves. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then we have the spinal nerves. So spinal nerves ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ the name itself is suggesting it is means it is arising from spinal cord. So spinal cord ಇಂದ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಬಾಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ we have 31 pairs of spinal nerves. ನಮ್ಮ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಲೆಂತ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಪೈನಲ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ನೆಕ್ ರೀಜನ್ ಟಿಲ್ ದ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್, ಹಿಪ್ ರೀಜನ್, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತನಕ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಸ್ಪೈನಲ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್ 31 pairs of spinal nerves na ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ it is going to produce those 31 pairs of spinal nerves which are ultimately connected to our thoracic cavity, abdominal cavity, lower limbs, upper limbs, ಇದೆಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ connect ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. Okay, is that clear to you? So that is what we call it as the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves, which are linked with the central nervous system. Hope this is clear to everybody. Artha aita? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we'll go with the next part. Autonomous nervous system. Today, the name itself is suggesting something. Autonomous ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? One which is not controlled by anything. It is independent of its functions. ಹೌದಾ? That is what is called as autonomous. ಇವಾಗ ನಿಮಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, there are so many educational institutions which will be named as autonomous university, autonomous college ಅಂತ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಕೇಳಿದೀರಾ ಹೆಸರು? ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. Okay, fine. So there is no response. So autonomous nervous system is basically the nerves which are also connected to the central nervous system itself, but those nerves are independent in its function. Means brain and spinal cord doesn't have any control over them. They can show their functions on their own. That is called as autonomous nervous system, which is classified as parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, or parasympathetic nerves or sympathetic nerves. So parasympathetic nerves and sympathetic nerves basically controls all the involuntary functions. Involuntary functions. You know, involuntary functions, right? Can be like the pumping of your heart, contraction relaxation of the esophagus, as well as contraction relaxation of your digestive system. So such type of involuntary functions, whatever are present in our body, so those type of functions will be controlled by this parasympathetic and sympathetic nerves. But what is the speciality about this is they are considered to be antagonistic. Antagonistic to each other. ಅಂದರೆ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ the opposite function will be shown by the other. Simple ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. If sympathetic nerves are going to help in increasing the heartbeat rate, parasympathetic nerves brings down the heartbeat rate to normal. So that's why they are called antagonistic. ಅಂದ್ರೆ opposite functions are performed by them. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So ಈ ತರ ನಮ್ಮ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಬಾಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ nervous system classify ಆಗಿದೆ. Brain, spinal cord, which is a part of central nervous system, peripheral nervous system consisting of cranial nerves and spinal nerves, autonomous nervous system further classified as parasympathetic and sympathetic nerves. So ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಬರ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ? Can I proceed ahead? ಅಳಿಸ್ಲಾ ಇದನ್ನ?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So let's go ahead to understand the next thing, which is called as the structure of brain. Brain structure na ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಬರಿಬೇಕು. Before writing the diagram, let me give you some small information about the brain. So ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋ ಹಾಗೇನೆ brain acts something like our mother board of the human body. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಮದರ್ ಬೋರ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಹೌದಾ?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So similarly, human body ನಲ್ಲಿ brain is something like a mother board. So if the brain is not present, the human body becomes something like a dummy model. So the brain is very, 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 very important. And where is it present? It is present in the anterior end of our body. And this brain has shown an activity of evolution. Means it has evolved over a period of time. From millions of years. So as activity of evolution, human being today has become the most evolved intelligent species on planet Earth. And he is able to rule this entire planet. Howdalwa? Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's because of the development of our brain. The brain which is present at the anterior end is somewhat up to around, means brain has a served weight of around 1.4 kgs. Approximately, I can say 1.5 is the weight of the brain. And this brain takes up the responsibility of controlling all the systems in your body, be it the nervous system, sorry, be it the excretory system, circulatory system, digestive system, what means endocrine system, muscular system, skeletal system, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ then your brain is functioning normally ಅಂತ. Okay, so brain takes up the responsibility of controlling every organ and organ system of the human body. So this brain is made up of approximately around 100 billion neurons. Now, ಮೊನ್ನೆ ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ, last class we understood the structure of the neuron. A neuron, we called it as an elongated structure having cell body with dendrites, axon, and the terminal ends with the synaptic knobs. ಆ ತರ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಬ್ರೈನ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟಿರುತ್ತೆ, 1000 ಬಿಲಿಯನ್ ನ್ಯೂರಾನ್ಸ್ ಬರೀ ಬ್ರೈನ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ. ಅದು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸ್ಪೈನಲ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಇದೆ, ನ್ಯೂರಾನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅವರ್ ಬಾಡಿನಲ್ಲೂ ನ್ಯೂರಾನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಹೌದಾ?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So just if you take example of only brain itself is made up of around 1000 billion neurons. And more important thing is, we have already understood neurons are very delicate cells. If they die, they do not reproduce again. If there is any injury, it cannot show the activity of mitotic simulation. Once it is born, means once it takes its birth, till the end of the life, it is going to be the same. So, hagagi, it is a very delicate structure. Neuron cells are very delicate structure. So, in that case, can I say brain is also very delicate because it is made up of 100 billion neurons?
Yes, sir.
So, in such a case, okay, brain requires protection. So, brain, which is a highly delicate, sensitive organ, is protected. Here, there is presence of something called as cranium. In other terms, we call that cranium also as skull. So it is covered by skull. So skull is an external covering, or the cranium is the external covering of the brain, which is nothing but the bony material, skeletal material. ಅದರ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಆ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಸ್ಕಲ್ ಅಥವಾ ಕ್ರೇನಿಯಂ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ is covered with one layer of what is called a skin. ಹೌದಾ? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then you can observe that in the entire human body, the head region is the place where the skin contains maximum hair follicles. ಹೌದಲ್ವಾ? ರೆಸ್ಪಾಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ರು.
Yes, sir.
ಇದ್ದೇ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀರಿ ಎಲ್ರು? Okay, fine. So we are able to see maximum hair follicles. So hair follicles ಯಾಕಿರುತ್ತೆ? The hair follicles will ultimately give rise to hair. ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇರ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆ? It is not for fashion. The hair is present in our body as a protection. Yake? Brain is very delicate. So externally it is covered by hair. Below the hair there is skin. Below the skin there is presence of cranium or the skull. Idishte alla. Innu ondirutte. Enapa antandre the brain will be covered by 3 layers of tissues, which we call it as meninges. Adu mundike bartivi. We'll try to understand very first the structure of the human brain. Diagram ಬರಿಬೇಕು, ಎಲ್ಲರೂ diagram ಬರೀರಿ. Okay. ಬರ್ದ್ರಾ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್? ಬರಿತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ?
Yes, sir. Welcome, sir.
Once you finish drawing the diagram, tell me, then I'll explain.
Finish, sir.
Done, everyone? Others also have completed. Can I go with the explanation? Okay. So just observe the board now. Let's try to understand.
Yes, sir.
Ega. Now this is the structure of a brain what we have written, and it is only a section. Andare. Now let's assume this two fists together becomes as brain and ankoon. Now what we have done, we have cut the brain and we are observing it from the lateral side. So ಅದನ್ನ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, sagittal section of a brain ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಈ sagittal section of a brain ನಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಬರ್ದಿದ್ದೀವಿ. Now very first, as I told you, brain is very delicate, made up of more than 100 billion neurons ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಇದೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಈ ಬ್ರೈನ್ ಗೆ ಫರ್ದರ್ ದರ್ ಇಸ್ ಕವರಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ, 3 layers ಆರ್ ದೇರ್. ಆ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ತೋರ್ಸಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಬರ್ದಿರ್ತೀನಿ ನೋಡಿ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಹಿಂಗೆ, ಇನ್ನರ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಲೇಯರ್, ಔಟರ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಲೇಯರ್, ಸಾರಿ ಮಿಡಲ್ ಲೇಯರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಇನ್ನರ್ ಲೇಯರ್. ಈ ತರ 3 layers ಆಫ್ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೀತೀನಿ ನೋಡಿ. ದರ್ ಇಸ್ 1 layer, ಔಟರ್ ಲೇಯರ್, ಮಿಡಲ್ ಲೇಯರ್, inner layer. ಈ ತರ 3 layers of tissue will be covering this entire part of the brain, which will be called as, now outer part will be called as dura mater. Outer dura mater anta kariತೀವಿ. Okay na? Is that fine? Outer part is dura mater. Then middle region will be called as arachnoid. Middle is arachnoid, and innermost part or the innermost layer I call that as pia mater. So like this, there are 3 layers. The outermost is called as the outer dura mater, the middle is called as the middle arachnoid, and the inner is considered as the inner pia mater. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಈಗ in between these layers there will be presence of one fluid. A fluid na ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ we call it as cerebrospinal fluid, also called as in simple CSF. Cerebrospinal fluid is also called as CSF. ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ? So the fluid is present in between these layers, which is going to act as shock absorbers and to ensure that it is going to prevent from any type of mechanical injuries or shocks to the brain. Andre ನಾವು ಇವಾಗ ಜಂಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಜಂಪ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, there is all possibility that the brain may go and hit with the skull. ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, there might be damage to the brain. So ಹಾಗಾಗಿ it is covered with these three layers with the fluid. That fluid is going to act as a shock absorber. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? Is that clear?
Yes,
and
sir.
also it provides some nourishment to the neuron cells present in the brain. That is the importance of the cerebrospinal fluid. But coming to this part of the brain is actually classified into three parts, such as forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. ಮತ್ತೆ ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ನೋಡಿ, forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. So ಈ ತರ three parts ಇದೆ. Forebrain ನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ? Forebrain is going to be made up of something called cerebrum and diencephalon. The diencephalon is further classified as upper thalamus, lower hypothalamus. Okay, then midbrain ನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ನಮಗೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅಂತ ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಏನು ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ midbrain ನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ it is a relay station ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಬಹುದು. ಅದನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ. Then the hindbrain region consists of cerebellum, pons varoli, and medulla oblongata. So the hindbrain consists of three regions. One is called as cerebellum, second is called as the pons varoli, and the third is called as medulla oblongata. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So ಇದನ್ನ ಫರ್ದರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ವಿಲ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ದಟ್ ಇನ್ ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್. ಈ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ನ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, so that the further explanation becomes much easier. Okay na? Is that fine?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll continue it in the next class. Thank you all. See you. Bye. Have a great day today.